Growing up in a Puerto Rican household in New York, I mean, music was the heart of everything. I always remember the weekends, you would wake up, my mom would be cooking or cleaning, and the music would be playing. I remember my dad sitting in the living room, I think at the time smoking cigarettes, because back then you did that. There are so many core memories that are wrapped up in music. I just felt like for me, music as a child was just always something that I couldn't live without. So I would find a new artist, Madonna, Janet Jackson, New Kids, but I would be listening to lyrics. I would be looking at producers. I had to know every little bit about it, where I feel like no one else really cared. As much as I loved it throughout my childhood and being a young adult, I had zero clue that it would ever be an option until I came to the behind the scenes tour at Full Sail. And I was just like, oh my God, this is actually something that could be a career path. When we finally got into larger studios, being able to sit there and learn all of it and be more hands-on, I remember those moments being really exciting. I remember working towards this room, right? Because this is the one that everyone wants to be in. So you're kind of doing all these different things, but you work to this point, and when you're in here, you just don't want to screw up. But then you realize oh, I do know what I'm doing. So after graduation, I started at Power 105. My job was actually to answer phones for the on-air jocks, but I had a friend that worked in the production department. His job was to do a lot of the recorded liners with artists, and he was always really busy. I was like, well, I can help. I know Pro Tools. Go, get lunch, I can work on these or whatever, no problem. Then all of a sudden, the program director who runs all of the radio station, Michael Saunders, he was walking by, and I could see him looking in and keep walking, but then double back and come back and look in the window, what is this girl doing? And he was just amazed by the story and what I had been doing, because to most I was just answering phones in one of the studios. And actually was the beginning of probably one of the most impactful relationships I've ever had, both professionally and personally, because he ended up being a huge mentor for me. He sat me at tables that most probably thought I shouldn't have been sitting at. He did it to empower me and to teach me, and I learned so much during those times that I feel that's where I kind of grew up. Born and raised in New York, Jay-Z was hip hop to me. This was probably one of those moments where I was like, oh wow, this is it. You can see I look like such a baby, and yet here I am in the #1 market at one of the #1 stations in the country with the #1 artist. And I was blessed enough to start my career and be able to work my way up. So I'm the Vice President of Programming and Artist Relations at Music Choice. We get to break new artists, play new music, play some of the hits, and really just curate the music experience. And then I hope to be able to present the artists and the music in a way that really allows the listeners to connect. When I get on calls and they're playing me something that no one's heard before, that is gonna change the way people listen to music, break new boundaries, those are the moments that remind me why I do it. I think it's really important for women to empower each other, which is what I'm trying to do, and to have a voice for others. As a Latina in the business, a music executive, to have a voice to talk a little bit about that empowerment. I think about my daughter and I think about my son, and I feel especially for her being a woman, and she's a mini version of me, her being able to walk the halls of Hall of Fame and being able to see mom's stuff, I hope that both her and my son will down the road be able to really reflect and be like, my mom was kind of cool. I guess I should have listened.